The last thing I saw was the dust from Madison's Mercedes disappearing down Highway 287 outside Amarillo, Texas. My chest pain was getting worse, stabbing through my ribs like hot needles. Phone dead, not a single car visible on that endless stretch of desert road. Her words still echoed in the scorching air. She was tired of my health. Dramatics had important meetings to attend. 20 minutes later, when I collapsed onto the burning asphalt, I understood that this abandonment would cost her everything she'd spent 3 years scheming to steal. My name is Caesar, and at 65 years old, I thought I'd seen enough of life to avoid its cruelest surprises. After building my petroleum engineering consulting firm from a garage startup to a multi-million-dollar operation, after 38 years of marriage to my beloved Eleanor, after raising 2 children and putting them through the best schools money could buy, I believed I'd earned some peace in my golden years. Eleanor's death 5 years ago from pancreatic cancer had left a hole in my life that I'd been trying to fill with family connections, particularly with my daughter Madison. Madison, at 38, had inherited her mother's beauty, but somewhere along the way had lost her kindness. She'd become a successful real estate developer in Dallas, driving luxury cars and living in high-rise buildings, always chasing the next big deal. My son Thomas, 3 years younger, had taken a different path. He taught high school history in Denver, coached basketball, and called me every Sunday without fail. The contrast between my children had become more pronounced since Eleanor's passing, but I'd attributed Madison's distance to grief and her demanding career. The phone call came on a Tuesday evening in March. Madison's voice carried an unusual warmth that should have been my first warning. "Dad, I've been thinking about you a lot lately," she said, her tone honeyed with concern. "I have some incredible investment properties to show you in New Mexico. Why don't we take a little road trip, just you and me, like when I was little?" My heart had jumped at the invitation. Madison hadn't suggested spending time together in over 2 years. Our interactions had been limited to obligatory holiday dinners and birthday cards that arrived days late. "That sounds wonderful, sweetheart," I'd replied, probably too eagerly. "When were you thinking?" "This weekend, actually. I know it's short notice, but the market's moving fast. Oh, and I'll need you to bring some documents from your home office. Just routine estate planning updates your lawyer sent over. We can handle everything during the drive." The request seemed odd, but my excitement at reconnecting with my daughter overshadowed any concerns. I spent the next 3 days preparing for the trip, even buying her favorite road trip snacks from when she was young. The man who'd negotiated million-dollar contracts and detected the slightest irregularities in geological surveys somehow missed every red flag waving in front of his face. Saturday morning arrived crisp and clear. Madison pulled up in her latest Mercedes, a silver beast, that probably cost more than most people's houses. She looked polished, as always, designer sunglasses perched on her head, smartphone constantly buzzing with what she called urgent deals. As I climbed into the passenger seat with my small travel bag and the requested documents, she barely glanced up from her screen. "Traffic should be light," she muttered, already backing out of my driveway. "We need to make good time. I have showings scheduled." The first hour passed pleasantly enough. I tried engaging her in conversation about her life, her work, even the weather. Her responses came in short bursts between phone calls. The third call caught my attention. She'd put it on speaker while driving, thinking I was dozing. "Just keep him busy for 3 more hours," a male voice said. I recognized Derek Summers, her business partner, whom I'd met twice at company functions. "Not a problem," Madison replied, glancing at me. "Everything's under control. The notary will be ready when you get here. Make sure he doesn't read anything too carefully." Madison hit the end button quickly, tossing me a smile. "Client coordination. You know how it is." As we passed through Wichita Falls, my chest began its familiar tightening. The cardiologist had warned me about stress, and heat prescribed nitroglycerin tablets for episodes. I reached for my pill bottle, finding it nearly empty. "Madison, honey, we need to stop at the next town. I need to refill my prescription." She kept her eyes on the road, knuckles whitening on the steering wheel. Dad, we're already running late. Can it wait? It's my heart medication. The doctor says I shouldn't go without it. I tried to keep my voice calm, not wanting to sound dramatic. There you go again. She snapped, the warmth from her invitation completely gone. Every time we try to do something, you have some health crisis. It's always something with you. The accusation stung worse than the chest pain. Madison, I haven't asked you for anything in years. I just need to stop at a pharmacy. No. Her voice turned cold as the air conditioning blasting in my face. I'm tired of this manipulation. Mom's gone, and you've been using every excuse to control everyone around you. These health scares this needy old man act, it's exhausting. We just passed a sign reading Amarillo 40 miles, when the pain intensified. My left arm went numb, sweat beading on my forehead despite the cold air. Madison, please. I think I'm having an episode. She yanked the wheel hard to the right tires, screeching onto the shoulder. Dust clouds enveloped the car as she slammed it into park. Get out! I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. What? You heard me. Get out. I'm done with this pathetic display. She reached across me, popping open the passenger door. You want attention? You can find your own way to it. I have real business to handle, not babysit someone who uses fake illnesses to control people. Madison, you're leaving me here in the middle of nowhere. My voice cracked, disbelief mixing with the crushing pain in my chest. You're a grown man who built a company, remember? Figure it out. She grabbed my travel bag, tossing it onto the gravel. Maybe a little time alone will help you realize how your constant need for attention affects others. I climbed out slowly, legs unsteady, still unable to process what was happening. My daughter, the little girl I'd taught to ride a bicycle, who'd cried on my shoulder after her first heartbreak, was driving away. A mile down the road, I saw something fly from her window. My jacket, the one with my wallet and backup medication, landed in a dusty heap on the scorching pavement. Standing there, watching her Mercedes disappear into the shimmering heat waves, a terrible clarity washed over me. This wasn't a momentary lapse of judgment or frustration. The phone calls, the urgent timeline, the documents she'd wanted, my daughter saw me as nothing more than an obstacle between her and my money. The chest pain spreading through my body was nothing compared to the shattering of my heart as I finally understood who Madison had become. The Texas sun bore down mercilessly as I stumbled along the highway, shoulder each step, a monumental effort. My shirt clung to my back, soaked through with perspiration that had nothing to do with the 90-degree heat. The chest pain radiated down my left arm, up into my jaw. Classic signs I'd been taught to recognize but hoped never to experience alone on a desolate stretch of asphalt. 20 minutes after Madison's departure, my legs gave out. The roadside gravel bit into my knees as I collapsed, vision blurring at the edges. My last coherent thought was wondering if the vultures circling overhead were real or hallucinations brought on by heat exhaustion. The irony wasn't lost on me even in that moment. I'd spent decades analyzing rock formations, calculating pressure points and stress fractures in the earth, yet failed to see the fractures in my own family until they split wide open. Consciousness returned in fragments. White ceiling tiles, the rhythmic beeping of machines, the antiseptic smell that could only mean hospital. A face leaned into view, weathered and kind, speaking, with a slight Mexican accent. Sir, can you hear me? You're safe now. My name is Manuel Rodriguez. I found you on Highway 287. Through the fog of medication and exhaustion, Manuel told me his story. A long-haul trucker heading back to Houston, he'd spotted what he thought was debris on the roadside. Something made him slow down. Maybe divine intervention, he said, crossing himself. He'd called 911, stayed with me until the paramedics arrived, even followed the ambulance to the hospital to make sure I had someone there. You kept saying a name, Manuel mentioned quietly. Madison. Is that someone we should call? The monitors betrayed my emotional response, heart rate spiking at her name. No, I managed to whisper. Call Thomas. My son in Denver. 3 days passed in a blur of tests, IV drips, and concerned doctors. The diagnosis was heat exhaustion, combined with a cardiac episode triggered by stress and abandonment in dangerous conditions. "You're lucky," Dr. Patricia Hernandez told me bluntly. "Another hour in that heat without your medication, and we'd be having a very different conversation." Thomas arrived on day 2, having driven straight through from Denver. The moment he walked into my hospital room, his face a mix of relief and barely contained fury, I knew Madison hadn't even attempted to explain her actions. He hugged me carefully, mindful of the monitors and IV lines, then pulled a chair close to my bed. "Dad, what the hell happened? The hospital said you were found alone on the highway. Where's Madison?" I spent the next hour recounting the trip, watching my son's expression shift from confusion to disbelief to rage. Thomas had inherited Eleanor's gentle nature, but also her fierce protectiveness of family. His hands clenched and unclenched as I described Madison driving away, leaving me without medication or means of communication. "I'm calling the police," he said, already reaching for his phone. "This is attempted murder, or at least criminal negligence." "Wait," I said, placing my hand over his. "First, I need you to do something for me. Go to my house. In my home office, safe combination. 34-2112, there are some documents. Bring everything you find. And Thomas, check if anything seems disturbed or missing." He wanted to argue, to demand immediate action against his sister, but something in my expression stopped him. "Okay, Dad, but we're not letting this go. I don't care if she's my sister. What she did is unforgivable." While Thomas made the 6-hour drive to Dallas and back, I lay in that hospital bed, putting pieces together. The urgent timing of the trip, the documents she'd wanted me to bring, Derek's comment about a notary. My years in business had taught me to recognize patterns, and this one was forming a picture I didn't want to see, but couldn't ignore. Thomas returned the next evening, his face grim. He closed the door to my room, pulled his chair close again, and spread papers across my hospital tray. "Dad, we have a problem. A big one." The security system I'd installed 2 years ago had captured everything. Madison and Derek entering my home the night I was hospitalized, spending 3 hours in my office. Several folders were missing from the safe, including deeds to my rental properties and documentation for various investment accounts. But what Thomas found next turned my blood cold despite the warm hospital room. "She used your computer," Thomas said, pulling up photos on his phone. "Forgot to log out of your email. I found this in the drafts folder." The email was addressed to Derek, dated the day before our trip. Madison had detailed their entire plan: get me to sign property transfer documents during the New Mexico trip, claiming they were routine estate updates. The crown jewel was my Dallas penthouse, valued at $3.2 million. If I proved difficult or suspicious, they'd proceed with Plan B, pursuing power of attorney based on my declining mental health and inability to manage affairs. "There's more," Thomas continued, his voice tight with controlled anger. "I talked to the building manager at your penthouse. Madison's been living there for 2 weeks. Told the staff you'd gifted it to her, that you were moving into an assisted living facility. She's already changed the mail, forwarding, installed her own furniture, and threw a housewarming party last weekend." The monitor beside my bed beeped faster as my blood pressure rose. My daughter hadn't just abandoned me on a dangerous road. She'd calculated that abandonment as part of a larger scheme. The trip was never about bonding or showing me investments. It was about removing me as an obstacle to wealth she felt entitled to claim. How did I miss this? I asked more to myself than Thomas. All the signs were there. Her sudden interest in my health, the questions about my will last Christmas, the way she kept pushing me to give her financial power of attorney, just in case. Thomas gripped my hand. "Because you're her father. You loved her and wanted to believe she loved you back. That's not a weakness, Dad. That's being human. I need you to check something else," I said, mind racing despite the pain medication. Look up Derek Summers. See if there's any history we should know about. And Thomas. Not a word to Madison about what we've discovered. As far as she knows, I'm still the confused old man she left on that highway." My son's eyes met mine, understanding passing between us. "You're going to play along." She thinks I'm weak, possibly dying, definitely incompetent. Let her believe that. I settled back against the pillows, already formulating plans. But first, bring me my phone. I need to make some calls to old friends. It's time to find out just how deep this betrayal goes. As Thomas left to gather what I'd requested, I stared at the ceiling tiles, counting them methodically to calm my racing thoughts. Madison had made a critical error, one I'd seen destroy companies and partnerships throughout my career. She'd underestimated her opponent, confused physical vulnerability with weakness of mind and spirit. The chest pain was real, the heart condition serious, but my mind remained sharp as the geological instruments I'd used to build my fortune. She wanted to play a game of deception and greed. She'd chosen the wrong opponent. The abandoned father on Highway 287 was about to teach his daughter the most expensive lesson of her life. I returned to Dallas, a changed man. Not physically, though. I moved slower, relied on a cane for stability, and made sure to take my medication religiously. The change ran deeper, hidden beneath a carefully constructed facade of confusion and frailty. Thomas drove me home from the hospital, both of us maintaining the charade, even in private, knowing that walls sometimes have ears, and Madison had proven herself capable of anything. My house felt different, violated by Madison's intrusion. I shuffled through rooms I'd shared with Eleanor, touching familiar objects as if seeing them for the first time. In my office, I made a show of struggling with simple tasks, fumbling with papers, squinting at documents. If Madison had installed any surveillance, she'd see exactly what she expected, a declining old man overwhelmed by basic activities. "Thomas," I called out, letting my voice quaver. "Where did I put my reading glasses?" He played along perfectly, finding them on my head, patting my shoulder with exaggerated concern. We'd established our communication system during the drive home. Real conversations happened during his loud shower running sessions, or while the television blared, masking our whispered planning. Everything else was performance. The first order of business was James Morrison. I'd known James peripherally through the Dallas business community, aware of his reputation as a former FBI agent who'd transitioned into high-level private investigation. Our meeting took place at a small diner in Fort Worth, far from Madison's usual haunts. I arrived appearing disheveled, Thomas steadying me as we entered. James studied me across the booth, his trained eyes taking in every detail. He was late 50s, silver-haired, with the kind of quiet intensity that made guilty people confess without prompting. I slid a folder across the table, then deliberately knocked over my water glass, apologizing profusely as the waitress cleaned up. "Ignore the theatrics," I muttered while she was gone. "I need absolute discretion." His investigation began immediately. Within a week, James had uncovered a pattern that chilled me more than that desert highway. Derek Summers had left a trail across the Southwest, 3 elderly victims in Arizona, each losing property through suspicious transfers. Margaret Chen, 82, signed away her Scottsdale house while hospitalized for pneumonia. Robert Blackstone, 78, transferred commercial property to Derek's LLC during what his family claimed was severe dementia. Patricia Williams, 75, lost 2 rental properties through documents she swore she never signed. He's under investigation in Arizona. James reported during our second meeting, this time in the parking lot of a medical building where I'd purposely scheduled a cardiology appointment. No charges filed yet. He smart targets people with minimal family oversight, makes everything look legitimate on paper. And my daughter brought him into her life knowing this? James's silence was answer enough. The legal team came together through Harold Patterson, a retired judge who'd been Eleanor's cousin, and one of the few people I trusted implicitly. We met at his ranch outside Dallas, 40 acres, where privacy was guaranteed, and Madison would never think to look. Harold had assembled two of Texas's finest legal minds for our situation. Sarah Blackwood specialized in elder abuse cases, having written legislation that strengthened protections for vulnerable adults. She was 45 sharp as a surgical scalpel, with a personal vendetta against those who preyed on the elderly, after watching her own grandmother fall victim to a similar scheme. Marcus Stone brought criminal prosecution experience, having successfully tried dozens of fraud cases during his tenure as assistant district attorney. "What you're describing isn't just family drama," Sarah said, reviewing the evidence. "This is organized financial exploitation. The abandonment on the highway elevates it to potential attempted murder through negligence. We can build a powerful case, but we need more evidence." "Then we'll get it," I replied, leaning heavily on my cane for effect, even among allies. I've spent 40 years reading rock formations finding oil where others saw empty desert. Madison thinks she's hunting a weakened deer. She doesn't realize she's walked into a wolf's den. The next phase required Oscar-worthy performance. I began making calculated mistakes designed to embolden Madison. During a family dinner at Thomas's insistence, I called Madison by her mother's name 3 times, asked about medications I didn't take, and fumbled with my silverware. The contempt in her eyes was barely concealed as Derek patted her hand under the table. "Dad," Madison said with false sweetness, "have you been taking all your pills? You seem more confused than usual." "Pills." I blinked owlishly at her. "Eleanor usually handles my medications. Where is your mother anyway?" Thomas gripped his fork tighter, but maintained character. "Dad, remember Mom passed away 5 years ago." I let my face crumble in exaggerated grief. 5 years. No, that can't be right. We just celebrated our anniversary. Madison and Derek exchanged meaningful glances. After they left, Thomas punched the wall in frustration. "How can you stand it, letting her think you're losing your mind?" "Because every performance brings us closer to justice," I replied, voice steady and clear. "She's documenting what she thinks is dementia. We're documenting conspiracy to commit fraud." James Morrison's surveillance revealed the depth of their planning. Madison met with attorney Richard Vaughn, weekly preparing competency hearings. She'd contacted 3 nursing homes touring facilities with Derek discussing memory care units. They'd even interviewed home health agencies telling them about their poor father's declining condition. The masterstroke came when I gave Madison access to a single checking account. $50,000 carefully documented, every transaction monitored. I told her I was having trouble managing bills. Could she help? The greed in her eyes was quickly masked by concern. "Of course, Dad. That's what family is for." Within 48 hours, the account showed unusual activity. Luxury purchases at Neiman Marcus, a $5,000 dinner at Dallas's most exclusive restaurant, jewelry from Tiffany. Each transaction captured on bank security cameras, signatures preserved in high definition. Madison didn't realize this particular account had been flagged for enhanced documentation at my request. "She's getting sloppy," James reported. "Success is making her overconfident. She's not even trying to hide the spending." "Good," I replied, studying the transaction records. "Let her think she's already won. The higher someone climbs on stolen ladder rungs, the farther they fall." Harold arranged for discreet medical evaluations. Dr. Amanda Richards, one of Texas's leading neurologists, conducted comprehensive cognitive testing. My results showed not just competence, but exceptional mental acuity for my age. Every test was recorded, witnessed, documented. We were building an unassailable medical record to counter any claims of dementia. "Your cognitive function is remarkable," Dr. Richards noted. "Whatever your daughter claims in court will be thoroughly refuted by medical science." The hardest part was maintaining distance from simple pleasures. I couldn't visit my penthouse knowing Madison had contaminated it with her presence. I couldn't contact old friends fearing word might reach her. Every action was calculated, measured against our ultimate goal. Thomas became my only confidant, the sole person who saw past the performance to the pain beneath. "I keep thinking about when she was little." I confided one evening sitting in my study while Thomas ran the shower for noise cover. She used to climb into my lap with her storybooks, wouldn't go to sleep until I'd read at least 3. When did that little girl disappear? Maybe she never left, Thomas suggested gently. Maybe she just got buried under greed and ambition. But Dad, that doesn't excuse what she's done. That little girl wouldn't have left you to die on a highway. He was right. The daughter I mourned had vanished long before that desert road. What remained was a stranger wearing Madison's face, speaking with her voice, but lacking her soul. As I prepared for the next phase of our plan, I hardened my heart against memories. The abandoned man on Highway 287 deserved justice. The little girl with storybooks was gone, and I couldn't let grief for her prevent me from stopping the woman she'd become. The invitation went out on ivory cardstock, Eleanor's favorite color. My 66th birthday celebration at the Dallas Country Club would be the social event of the spring season. I spent an entire afternoon pretending to struggle with the guest list, calling Thomas repeatedly to ask if I'd already invited people, deliberately adding names twice. Madison witnessed the whole performance during one of her increasingly frequent visits to check on my deteriorating condition. "Dad, you've put Judge Patterson down 3 times," she pointed out, barely concealing her satisfaction at this evidence of confusion. "Harold's coming, wonderful. He tells the best stories." I shuffled the papers with trembling hands that weren't entirely an act. "I want to make an important announcement about the family's future. You'll be there, won't you, sweetheart?" The calculation in her eyes was swift. Of course. I wouldn't miss it for anything. She left that afternoon with renewed energy, immediately calling Derek from her car. Through James Morrison's surveillance, we heard every word. He's planning something for the party. Probably wants to announce power of attorney. This is perfect timing. I stood at my window, watching her Mercedes disappear, then straightened from my manufactured stoop. The trap needed bait that would prove irresistible to someone convinced of their own cleverness. During her next visit, I presented the perfect lure. "Madison, I'm worried about these properties," I said, spreading deeds across my dining table with calculated clumsiness. "Your mother always handled the complicated financial things. The lawyers keep sending papers about estate taxes, structured transfers, liability protection. It's all beyond me now." She leaned forward, manicured nails tracing the property lines on the surveys. 3 rental properties in prime Dallas locations, the penthouse she'd already claimed in her mind. Combined value, $8.7 million. "These are complex issues, Dad. You really shouldn't be handling this alone. Would you help me? Maybe we could transfer them to that fancy company structure you're always talking about. For tax purposes." I let my voice carry just enough confusion to seem vulnerable, but not enough to appear completely incompetent. "I could arrange that," she replied carefully. "We'd need proper documentation, witnesses, notarization. Everything completely legal and above board." Could we do it at my birthday party? With all my old friends there, it would feel more like a celebration than business. Less confusing for me. Her smile was a predator spotting wounded prey. "That's a wonderful idea. I'll have Derek prepare everything. You just need to sign, and we'll handle all the complex details." The guest list required delicate curation. Each invitation went to someone who would play a crucial role in Madison's downfall, though she'd never recognized their significance. Judge Harold Patterson officially retired, but still maintaining his law license. 5 members of the Texas Bar Association, all friends from Eleanor's charity work. Dr. Amanda Richards, who'd bring her colleague specializing in capacity evaluation. 3 business journalists who'd covered my company's success over the years. District Attorney Robert Hayes, my golf partner for 2 decades. "Just boring old friends," I told Madison when she reviewed the list. "Nobody interesting to you young people." To complete the illusion of mental decline, I made a show of visiting my doctor, loudly discussing memory problems in the waiting room, where I knew Madison's hired informants would overhear. The false diagnosis I shared with her sent her into a frenzy of activity. early-stage dementia. I confided tearfully, though Dr. Richards had actually confirmed my brain showed no signs of deterioration whatsoever. "Oh, Dad," Madison said, her embrace feeling like a serpent's coils. "We'll get through this together. I'll make sure you're taken care of." Behind her back, Derek was already texting their attorney about expediting the property transfers. The $50,000 account I'd given Madison access to became a revealing study in escalating greed. The first week showed tentative purchases testing boundaries. By week 2, she'd grown bolder. I watched the transactions in real time, each one meticulously documented by bank security systems I'd specifically requested. A $10,000 shopping spree at Neiman Marcus, supposedly buying me new clothes, though nothing ever appeared in my closet. $3,000 restaurant bills for family dinners I'd never attended. Jewelry purchases that Derek gave her while sitting in establishments under full surveillance. They thought they were celebrating early victory. In reality, they were building our prosecution's evidence chain. Sarah Blackwood reviewed each transaction with grim satisfaction. "This establishes pattern behavior. No competent attorney could argue these were legitimate expenses for your care. She's creating her own prison, one receipt at a time." The birthday party planning proceeded on 2 levels. Publicly, I fumbled through arrangements, forgot appointments with vendors, confused dates and times. Privately, every detail was orchestrated with military precision. Thomas coordinated with the country club's security, ensuring cameras covered every angle of the main ballroom. We arranged for a court reporter to attend as a family friend, ready to create an official transcript if needed. The most delicate aspect was the locksmith arrangements. I needed new locks on all properties installations scheduled for the morning after the party. But it couldn't appear premeditated. The solution came through Harold's connections. A security company owner owed him a favor, agreed to have teams on standby for an emergency call that would come at midnight. "Your penthouse will be secured within hours," he assured me. "She won't be able to access any property after the party ends." Madison's confidence grew with each passing day. She brought fabric samples to my house, discussing renovations for properties not yet in her name. Derek accompanied her more frequently, their casual possessiveness over my belongings increasingly blatant. They discussed my assets, as if I weren't present, or worse, as if my presence was merely temporary inconvenience. During one visit, I found them in my study, photographing financial documents. "Just helping organize for the estate planning," Madison explained smoothly when caught. "You asked me to handle this, remember?" "Did I? Yes, I suppose I must have." I performed confusion while memorizing exactly which documents they'd accessed. James would want to know. The final piece required delicate handling. Madison had recruited accomplices, attorney Richard Vaughn and notary Jennifer Walsh. Both needed invitation to the party, but too direct an approach might raise suspicions. I solved it through Thomas, who mentioned to Madison that I kept forgetting to invite her professional friends. "You should bring them," Thomas suggested. "Dad specifically asked about your lawyer and that notary who's been helping with documents. He gets agitated when he thinks he's forgotten people." Madison took the bait, seeing opportunity rather than trap. "I'll make sure they're there. Dad needs familiar faces around him during stressful events." The week before the party, I made my final preparations. Updated will with specific disinheritance clauses, sealed and delivered to Harold's office. Complete medical evaluation results compiled into a presentation-ready format. Banking records showing every misappropriated cent. James Morrison's surveillance reports documenting conspiracy between Madison Derek and their accomplices. The night before the celebration, I sat in Eleanor's garden talking to her roses. "I'm about to destroy our daughter," I whispered to the blooms she'd tended with such love. "Not the little girl who helped you plant these, but the stranger she became. I hope you understand. I hope you forgive me." Thomas found me there at midnight, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. He wrapped an arm around me, sharing the burden of what tomorrow would bring. "She destroyed herself, Dad. You're just revealing the truth." "The truth," I repeated, tasting bitterness. Such an expensive birthday gift to give myself. As dawn approached on my 66th birthday, I prepared for the performance of my lifetime. The confused old man would take the stage one last time before revealing the wolf beneath. Madison thought she was attending a transfer of wealth. Instead, she'd witness a transfer of power from the child who'd betrayed her father to the father who'd refused to be anyone's victim. The trap was set, baited with greed and armed with justice. All that remained was for Madison to walk into it, confident in victory that would transform into defeat between one heartbeat and the next. Dawn broke on my birthday, with the kind of crystalline clarity Texas springs occasionally gift us. I stood at my bedroom window, watching the city wake beneath a sky painted in Eleanor's favorite shades of coral and gold. Somewhere across Dallas, Madison was probably already awake, reviewing the property transfer documents one final time, anticipating her triumph. She had no idea that her carefully constructed house of cards would collapse in exactly 12 hours. Thomas arrived early, bringing coffee, and the final surveillance reports from James Morrison. We sat in my kitchen, the same table where Madison had taken her first steps, where she'd done homework, while Eleanor cooked dinner, where our family had shared 20,000 meals before it fractured beyond repair. Morrison followed them to Richard Vaughn's office yesterday. Thomas reported sliding photographs across the table. They spent 3 hours preparing documents. Madison was coaching the notary Jennifer Walsh on what to say if anyone questioned the authenticity of your signatures. I studied the images, my daughter entering a law office with the confidence of someone who believed victory was assured. Derek beside her, carrying boxes of what appeared to be property documentation. Jennifer Walsh, looking nervous, but determined, clutching the official seal that would make their fraud appear legitimate. They've even prepared a medical statement, Thomas continued. Vaughn drafted something about you having moments of clarity amidst cognitive decline, explaining why you'd be competent to sign today, but might not remember it tomorrow. The calculated cruelty of it stole my breath. They weren't just stealing property. They were preparing to steal my dignity, my reputation, my very sense of self. The man who'd built a company from nothing, who'd found oil where experts saw only dust, would be reduced to a footnote in his own life story. Madison would tell people how she'd saved her poor father from himself, taken control just in time. The locksmith teams are ready, Thomas assured me. 6 crews on standby. The moment the party ends, they'll move on all properties simultaneously. New locks, new security codes, new camera systems. She won't be able to access so much as a garden shed. I nodded, then pulled out a leather folder. Inside were the documents that would end Madison's schemes, my real will, the medical competency evaluations, the criminal complaint drafted by Sarah Blackwood. But there was one addition I'd made alone late the previous night. "What's that?" Thomas asked, noticing the unfamiliar envelope. "A letter to Madison. For after." I couldn't meet his eyes. Despite everything, she's still my daughter. Maybe someday, years from now, she'll be ready to read it. The morning passed in careful preparation. I dressed in my best suit, the one Eleanor had chosen for our 35th anniversary. In the mirror, I saw not the fumbling old man I'd been portraying, but the executive who'd stared down corporate raiders and hostile takeovers. Today would be my last negotiation, the most important deal of my life. Dr. Amanda Richards called to confirm her attendance. My colleague, Dr. Nathan Cross, will accompany me. He's prepared to conduct an immediate competency evaluation if Madison challenges your mental state. We'll have medical authority on scene to counter any claims. Sarah Blackwood and Marcus Stone met me at the country club 2 hours before the party. We walked through the ballroom, noting camera positions, identifying strategic locations for key witnesses. The staff, loyal to our family after decades of patronage, had been discreetly informed to document everything, especially interactions between Madison and her accomplices. The district attorney will sit here. Marcus indicated a table with clear sightlines to the podium. Judge Patterson at the adjacent table. We'll have legal authority dispersed throughout the room, appearing to be random seating, but actually creating a net Madison won't escape. The journalists received special instruction. They'd been told to expect a significant announcement about Dallas business community philanthropy. Their cameras and recorders would capture every moment, though they didn't yet know they'd be documenting a crime rather than charity. At 4 o'clock, I made my final preparation. Standing in the country club's private library, I called each property management company. There may be confusion about access tonight, I informed them. Refer all questions to my attorney, Harold Patterson. Do not, under any circumstances, allow Madison Sterling entry to any property without written authorization from me personally. The penthouse manager hesitated. Sir, Ms. Sterling has been residing here for 3 weeks. Her belongings will be carefully packed and placed in storage. I interrupted. She is not a legal resident. Any items she's placed in my property will be available for collection through proper channels. 5 o'clock arrived with unseasonable warmth. Guests began arriving, a carefully orchestrated mixture of old friends and hidden allies. I positioned myself near the entrance, greeting each arrival with the calculated confusion I'd perfected. Some received their names wrong. Others got rambling stories about events from decades past. Everyone saw what Madison had trained them to expect: a declining patriarch clinging to past glories. Harold Patterson gripped my hand firmly, his eyes conveying support while his words played along. Caesar, you're looking well. Eleanor would be proud of this gathering. Eleanor, is she coming? I should check the kitchen, make sure her favorite wine is chilled. I wandered off, leaving Harold shaking his head sadly, for the benefit of watching eyes. Madison arrived at 5:30, fashionably on time for family, but early enough to manage the situation. She swept in, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salaries. Derek at her side in an Italian suit that screamed new money. Behind them came Richard Vaughn and Jennifer Walsh, looking less comfortable in the opulent surroundings. Happy birthday, Dad, Madison said loudly, embracing me for the crowd's benefit. In my ear, she whispered, remember, just sign where Derek indicates. We'll handle everything else. I patted her cheek with a trembling hand. Such a good daughter. Your mother would be so pleased you're helping with the family business. The next 90 minutes tested every ounce of my self-control. I mingled with guests, playing the confused elder to perfection, while watching Madison work the room. She spoke with calculated sadness about my condition, accepted sympathy with grace, positioned herself as the dutiful daughter bearing a heavy burden. Derek shadowed her, occasionally stepping away for hushed phone conversations with what I assumed were their other partners in crime. At 7 o'clock, dinner was served. I sat at the head table, Madison to my right, Thomas to my left. The seating arrangement she'd assumed was honor was actually strategy. Every word she spoke would be captured by the microphone hidden in the centerpiece, the camera concealed in the chandelier above. During the salad course, she leaned close. Dad, after your toast, we'll bring up the documents. Just a few signatures. Think of it as your birthday gift to me. Gift. I blinked at her. Did I forget to buy you something? It's not your birthday, is it? Her smile never wavered. No, Dad, it's yours. Remember, that's why we're here. The main course arrived prime rib, with Eleanor's favorite horseradish sauce. I ate mechanically, tasting nothing, focused on the approaching moment. Around the room, my allies sat ready. The court reporter chatted with her old friend at table 3. The FBI consultant James had recommended observed from table 7. District Attorney Hayes enjoyed his meal while mentally preparing arrest warrants. As dessert was served, Madison grew restless. She kept checking her phone, confirming with Vaughn that documents were ready. Jennifer Walsh clutched her notary seal like a talisman against the elegant surroundings. They all believed their moment of triumph was minutes away. Thomas squeezed my shoulder as I prepared to stand. You've got this, Dad. I rose slowly, tapping my water glass with a spoon. The room fell silent, 200 faces turning toward me. Madison beamed, already calculating property values. Derek's satisfied smirk made me want to accelerate the timeline, but patience had brought me this far. Friends, family, thank you for joining me tonight. My voice carried the quaver I'd practiced. 66 years on this earth, and I'm grateful for everyone. Well, most of them. Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. Madison's hand found mine, squeezing in what she probably thought was encouragement, but felt like a vulture's claw. I stand here tonight to make an important announcement about the future, I continued. About family legacy, and the truth we sometimes refuse to see until it's almost too late. Madison's smile widened. She gestured to Derek, who began moving toward the side table where their fraudulent documents waited. The trap was set, the prey confident, the hunter ready to strike. But first, I said, my voice suddenly clearing strength, returning like steel through spine. Let me tell you about the worst day of my life. 3 weeks ago, on a highway outside Amarillo, when my daughter left me to die. The transformation in Madison's face was instant. The smile froze, cracked, crumbled like a facade struck by a wrecking ball. Around the room, my allies shifted forward in their seats. The performance was over. The wolf was about to reveal his fangs, and Madison was about to discover that the lamb she'd been hunting had been predator all along. The silence that followed my words was complete, 200 people holding their collective breath. Madison's hand released mine, as if burned her face, cycling through emotions at breakneck speed. Confusion, fear, indignation, and finally desperate calculation as she tried to salvage her crumbling plan. "Dad's confused," she announced loudly, forcing a laugh that fooled no one. "He's been having these episodes. That's actually why we need to discuss some family business tonight to ensure his affairs are properly managed." I turned to face her, fully allowing every person in that ballroom to see the clarity in my eyes. The confused old man was gone, replaced by the petroleum executive who'd built an empire from desert dust and determination. "There's no confusion, Madison. 3 weeks ago, you invited me on a trip to view investment properties in New Mexico. When I had a cardiac episode on Highway 287, when I begged you to stop for my medication, you pulled over and ordered me out of the car. You left me your father on a desolate road in 90-degree heat, without water medication or means of communication." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Several people pulled out phones, whether to record or call for help. I didn't know or care. Madison's carefully cultivated image began its public destruction. "That's not... You're twisting what happened." Her voice pitched higher, panic seeping through. "You were having one of your episodes. I went to get help." "Did you?" I pulled out my phone, connected to the ballroom sound system. "Then explain this." The recording began crystal clear through professional speakers. Madison's voice filled the room. "Get out. I'm done with this pathetic display. You want attention? You can find your own way to it. I have real business to handle, not babysit someone who uses fake illnesses to control people." The recording continued my pleas for help, her cold dismissal, the sound of the car door slamming, and tires squealing away. Someone at table 4 began crying. Madison stood frozen, her $10,000 dress suddenly looking like costume jewelry on a mannequin. Manuel Rodriguez, a truck driver from Houston, found me collapsed 20 minutes later. I continued. Dr. Patricia Hernandez at Amarillo General Hospital confirmed I would have died within an hour. Heat exhaustion combined with cardiac distress. My daughter left me to die because I was inconvenient to her schedule. Derek stepped forward, trying to salvage something from the wreckage. "This is clearly a misunderstanding." Madison was distraught when she realized what happened. "We should discuss this privately as a family." "Ah, Derek Summers." I smiled, but it held no warmth. Madison's business partner and co-conspirator. "Tell me, Derek, how are your friends in Arizona? Margaret Chen, Robert Blackstone, Patricia Williams. All elderly, all lost property to your schemes. All currently working with prosecutors to ensure you face justice." The color drained from Derek's face as several guests began recording video. Near the entrance, 2 uniformed officers appeared, having been signaled by District Attorney Hayes. "But leaving me to die was just the beginning," I announced. "Thomas, please show our guests what happened next." My son stood activating the large screen, typically used for wedding slideshows. Security footage began playing Madison and Derek entering my home while I lay in the hospital. The timestamp showed them spending 3 hours in my office removing documents, accessing my computer. She didn't even wait to learn if I'd survived, I said, voice carrying over the shocked murmurs. While I fought for my life in Amarillo, my daughter was stealing property deeds and planning to take control of my assets. The screen changed to email evidence. Madison's draft to Derek appeared in 40-foot projection, their entire plan laid out in her own words. The property transfers the false claims of dementia, the step-by-step conspiracy to defraud an elderly parent. Madison found her voice shrill and desperate. Those emails are fake. This is all fake. He's having a paranoid episode. Someone call a doctor. An excellent suggestion. Dr. Amanda Richards stood her colleague beside her. I'm Dr. Richards' neurologist at Dallas Presbyterian. I've conducted extensive testing on Mr. Sterling over the past 2 weeks. His cognitive function is exceptional. No signs of dementia, no paranoia, no delusions. I have the full medical report here, witnessed and notarized. Moreover, Dr. Nathan Cross added, I'm prepared to conduct a competency evaluation right now in front of witnesses to confirm Mr. Sterling's mental state. Would you like that, Ms. Sterling? Madison's carefully styled hair began to wilt as perspiration beaded her forehead. She looked to Richard Vaughn for help, but the attorney was already backing toward the exit, recognizing the legal catastrophe unfolding. There's more, I announced, gesturing to Thomas again. The screen now showed bank records. After gaining access to one of my accounts, Madison and Derek stole $50,000 in less than 48 hours. Every transaction recorded, every signature captured on bank security cameras. The evidence parade continued relentlessly. Photographs of luxury purchases, recordings of Madison discussing my mental decline with nursing homes, surveillance of her living in my penthouse, while telling staff I'd moved to assisted living. Each revelation stripped away another layer of her fabricated narrative. Jennifer Walsh, I called out. The notary tried to shrink behind a flower arrangement. You agreed to backdate documents and notarize fraudulent transfers. Richard Vaughn, you prepared legal documents knowing they were part of an elder abuse scheme. Both of you are now complicit in conspiracy to commit fraud. Judge Patterson stood his authority filling the room despite his retirement. I've reviewed the evidence with the district attorney. Criminal charges will be filed tonight against all 4 conspirators. Officers, please take Madison Sterling, Derek Summers, Richard Vaughn, and Jennifer Walsh into custody. Madison's scream pierced the ballroom. You can't do this. I'm his daughter. That penthouse is mine. He promised it to me. This is all lies. Manipulation. As the officers approached, she turned on me with pure venom. You were supposed to be dying weak. You were supposed to need me. I did need you. I replied quietly, the microphone catching every word. I needed my daughter to love me, not my bank accounts. I needed you to see me as your father, not an obstacle to wealth. I needed you to choose family over greed. You failed every test. The handcuffs clicked around Madison's wrists with finality. As they led her past my table, she hissed, I'll destroy you for this. You'll die alone, old man. No one will care for you. You've lost your daughter. No, I said sadly. I lost my daughter 3 years ago when she chose Derek and his schemes over family. Tonight, I simply acknowledged that loss publicly. The arrests proceeded with swift efficiency. Derek tried to bargain immediately, offering to testify against Madison in exchange for leniency. Vaughn demanded his lawyer, while Walsh sobbed uncontrollably. The journalists captured every moment, tomorrow's headlines writing themselves in real time. As the ballroom doors closed behind the arrested conspirators, I faced the remaining guests. Many were crying, others sat in shocked silence. The birthday celebration had become a public execution of my relationship with Madison, necessary but devastating. I apologize for the deception, I said, exhaustion creeping into my voice. Many of you were brought here under false pretenses. But you needed to witness this, to understand why I had no choice. Elder abuse thrives in shadows, in family shame and private suffering. Tonight, we dragged it into the light. District Attorney Hayes approached the microphone. What you've witnessed tonight is sadly common. Elder financial abuse costs seniors billions annually. Most never report it because the perpetrators are family. Caesar Sterling's courage in exposing his own daughter will help us prosecute not just this case, but set precedents for protecting vulnerable seniors throughout Texas. Sarah Blackwood joined him. Mr. Sterling has agreed to donate the seized assets from this conspiracy to establish the Eleanor Sterling Foundation for Elder Protection. His personal tragedy will help prevent others. The crowd erupted in applause, but I barely heard it. The performance was over, the trap sprung, justice served. But I was still a father who just sent his daughter to prison. The victory tasted of ashes, and old dreams turned to dust. Thomas helped me to a chair as the room began to empty. Guests approached individually, offering support, sharing their own stories of family betrayal and elder abuse. The judge who'd lost his retirement savings to a nephew. The CEO, whose son had tried to have him declared incompetent. The widow, whose daughter-in-law had stolen her husband's life insurance. We were a fellowship of the betrayed finding solace in shared pain. The locksmith crews are moving now, Thomas whispered. By morning, every property will be secured with new systems. Madison's belongings from the penthouse are being professionally packed and moved to storage. She'll have no access to anything. I nodded, pulling out my phone. 30 missed calls from Madison's number, probably placed during booking. She'd discover soon enough that her carefully constructed empire had crumbled in a single evening. The penthouse she'd already redecorated, the properties she'd planned to flip, the lifestyle funded by my supposed dementia, all gone like morning mist under Texas sun. Harold Patterson was the last to approach, carrying a glass of Eleanor's favorite wine. We toasted silently, two old men who'd seen too much of humanity's darker nature. You did what was necessary, he said simply. Eleanor would understand. Would she? I wondered aloud. She always believed Madison would find her way back to us. Even at the end, she made me promise to take care of our little girl. You did, Harold replied firmly. You took care of her the only way left to you. You stopped her from becoming something worse, from destroying others, as she tried to destroy you. Sometimes, love means letting someone face consequences. As the country club staff began cleaning the battlefield disguised as a ballroom, I thought about consequences and love, justice and mercy. Madison would spend the next 15 to 20 years learning lessons she should have absorbed at her mother's knee. Her co-conspirators would face their own reckonings. The properties would shelter abuse victims instead of funding greed. Take me home, son, I told Thomas. This old wolf is tired. He helped me to the car past the police vehicles where Madison sat in custody, her perfect makeup streaked with tears of rage rather than remorse. Our eyes met through the window for just a moment. I saw no recognition of wrongdoing, only fury at being caught. The daughter I'd raised was truly gone, replaced by a stranger who'd valued my worth only in dollars and property deeds. As we drove away from the country club, leaving Madison to her fate, I realized the locksmith crews weren't just changing physical locks. Tonight had changed the locks on my heart, securing it against those who saw love as weakness to exploit. The abandoned man on Highway 287 had found his way home, but home would never include Madison again. 2 years have passed since that night at the Dallas Country Club, 730 days of rebuilding a life Madison tried to destroy. I'm sitting in what used to be her coveted penthouse, now transformed into something Eleanor would have loved, a sanctuary for those who've suffered elder abuse. The floor-to-ceiling windows that once reflected Madison's designer furniture now frame counseling circles, legal aid sessions, and support group meetings for families fractured by greed. The letter from Madison arrived this morning, forwarded through her attorney. I hold it with steady hands, no longer the trembling props from my performance. Prison stationery, regulated pen, carefully printed words that took her 2 years to write. Dad, I know you'll probably tear this up without reading it, but I need to try. Prison is nothing like I imagined. Not the physical parts, the bars, the schedule, the loss of freedom. Those I've adapted to. It's the silence that breaks you. Hours, days, months to think about every choice, every moment where I could have been different. I told myself for so long that you were the enemy, that your success came at our expense, that your money was somehow owed to me. Derek fed those thoughts, and I swallowed them eagerly, because they justified what I wanted to do anyway. Take without earning. Demand without deserving. Do you know what my cellmate is here for? She killed her mother for insurance money. We don't talk much, but when she describes her crime, I see myself in her words. The only difference is that Manuel Rodriguez found you in time. I think about that moment on the highway every day. Your face when I told you to get out. The way you stumbled, already struggling to breathe. I drove away telling myself you were manipulating me, but I knew. God help me. I knew you were really sick, and I left anyway. The other women here think I'm here for theft. I don't correct them. How do you explain that you're really here for attempted murder of your own father, that you valued a penthouse more than the man who read you bedtime stories? I won't ask for forgiveness. I haven't earned it. I won't promise I'm changed words are cheap, and mine have been lies for so long. I just wanted you to know that I remember now. I remember being 7 making cookies with Mom, you coming home early to help. I remember feeling safe and loved and complete. I destroyed that, not you. I see that now. Every time I hear another woman here talk about missing her family, I realize I threw mine away with both hands. Your daughter, if I can still claim that word, Madison. I set the letter aside and walked to the window where Madison once planned her empire. Below Dallas sprawls an afternoon sunshine, the same city where a little girl once held my hand as we walked to get ice cream. Thomas says I should feel vindicated by her letter, that it proves the lesson was learned. But vindication is a cold comfort when weighed against lost years and shattered bonds. The legal aftermath stretched 18 months. Madison received 12 years for elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. Derek, true to his cowardly nature, testified against everyone in exchange for 8 years. He detailed 3 other schemes targeting elderly victims, leading to additional arrests. Richard Vaughn was disbarred and sentenced to 5 years. Jennifer Walsh received 3 years probation and lost her notary license. The trials became textbook cases for prosecuting elder abuse in Texas. The financial recovery was swift but unsatisfying. Every stolen dollar was returned with interest. The properties Madison had schemed to steal now serve greater purposes. The rental homes provide transitional housing for elder abuse victims. The penthouse hosts support services and legal clinics. Eleanor's name graces every program, a legacy of protection born from betrayal. Caesar, Dr. Amanda Richards, knocks gently. She volunteers here monthly, providing cognitive assessments for abuse victims. Your 2 o'clock appointment is here. Mrs. Chen from Fort Worth. Another soul seeking shelter from family predators. I compose myself, hiding Madison's letter in my desk. Mrs. Chen doesn't need to see my pain while dealing with her own. I greet her warmly, recognizing the familiar signs, the confusion at finding herself victim to those she trusted most, the shame of being deceived by family, the fear that speaking up makes her a bad mother. They told me I was being selfish, she whispers, clutching documentation of her son's theft. That good mothers give everything to their children. Good mothers teach their children boundaries, I reply gently. Good mothers show that love doesn't mean enabling theft. You're here seeking help, which makes you braver than you know. We spend 2 hours untangling her situation. Her son had convinced her to sign over her house, claiming it would help with his divorce. Instead, he sold it and vanished with the proceeds. Classic elder abuse following Madison's playbook, almost word for word. Sarah Blackwood takes the case pro bono as she does for all our clients. Thomas arrives as Mrs. Chen leaves. My son has been my anchor through everything, driving from Denver monthly to help with the foundation. His own children. My grandchildren have grown closer since Madison's arrest. They see their grandfather not as a victim, but as someone who stood up to wrong, even when it cost him dearly. "How are you doing, Dad?" Thomas asks, noticing Madison's letter on my desk, despite my efforts to hide it. She wrote, I admit, first time since the trial. He reads it slowly, jaw tightening at certain passages. When he finishes, he sets it down carefully. "Do you believe her?" "I believe she believes it today in that cell. Whether it will survive her release?" I shrug. People can change, Thomas. Prison either breaks you or rebuilds you. Maybe Madison needed to lose everything to find something worth keeping. "You're more forgiving than I am," he says. "Every time I think about finding you in that hospital, about what could have happened." "But it didn't," I remind him. Manuel Rodriguez's kindness saved my body. Madison's cruelty saved my soul. If she hadn't abandoned me, I might have signed those papers in New Mexico. I'd have lost everything while thinking I was helping my daughter. The Foundation's work continues to grow. We've helped 300 families in 2 years, recovering millions in stolen assets. More importantly, we've changed how Texas prosecutes elder abuse. District attorneys now have blueprints from our case. Banks have implemented our suggested safeguards. Adult Protective Services uses our documentation methods. "Your work here matters, Dad," Thomas says, looking around the transformed penthouse. "Mom would be so proud." Eleanor. Not a day passes without missing her wisdom, her warmth, her ability to see the best in people while protecting herself from their worst. I sometimes wonder if Madison's descent began with Eleanor's death, if losing her moral compass sent her spinning into Derek's influence. But that excuse is too much. Grief explains poor choices. It doesn't justify attempted murder. The sun sets over Dallas, painting the sky in shades of justice and regret. In the distance, I can see the building where Madison once planned to build her real estate empire. It's being converted to senior housing now, another small victory in protecting the vulnerable. She'll be able to see it from her cell window if she looks. A daily reminder of the empire that crumbled because she confused inheritance with entitlement. My phone buzzes with the evening's messages. 30 notifications, but none from Madison. A reversal of that frantic night when she discovered the locks were changed. Among them is a text from Manuel Rodriguez, the truck driver who saved my life. We stay in touch, this unlikely friendship forged in desert heat and human kindness. He's visiting next week, bringing his family to see the foundation, built on his simple decision to stop for a stranger in need. The deepest lesson from this journey isn't about locks or legal protection, though both matter. It's about the family we choose versus the family we're given. Thomas chose to stand by me. Manuel chose to stop on that highway. Harold, Sarah Marcus, and dozens of others chose to help seek justice. Madison chose greed over love. Derek over family property, over people. Choices, not blood, determine who deserves the title family. I think about all the parents who've sat in this penthouse sharing stories of children who became strangers of love, weaponized into manipulation. We're a growing tribe united by betrayal, but strengthened by survival. Every recovered asset, every successful prosecution, every protected senior citizen is a small victory against those who see aging parents as ATMs rather than human beings deserving respect. As darkness settles over Dallas, I make my final rounds of the penthouse. The security system Madison never expected now protects those she would have victimized. The luxury she craved now serves a higher purpose. The locks she thought would never change stand as permanent reminders that actions have consequences, that fathers can be wolves as well as sheep. Tomorrow brings new challenges. More families seeking help, more predators to expose, more locks to change on hearts and homes alike. But tonight, I'll sit in Eleanor's garden, tend her roses, and tell her about the daughter we lost and the son we kept. I'll remind her that love sometimes means letting go, that protection can look like prosecution, that the hardest battles are fought not against strangers, but against those who share our names and blood, but not our values. Madison asked in her letter if she could still claim the word daughter. The answer lives in the space between justice and mercy, love and boundaries. She'll always be my daughter, the little girl with flour in her hair, laughing over cookie dough, lives forever in my memory. But the woman who left me on Highway 287, she's a cautionary tale, a reminder that privilege without principles leads to prison, that love without limits enables evil. To those watching who face similar betrayals, who wonder if standing up to family predators is worth the cost, I offer this hard-won wisdom. The locks that matter most aren't on doors, but on hearts. Change them when necessary. Guard them carefully. And remember that sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable those who would destroy themselves while dragging you down with them. The man abandoned on that desert highway survived to build something greater than personal revenge. Every elder protected every family saved from financial predation. Every would-be Madison stopped before they can strike. These are Eleanor's true legacy, and my final gift to the daughter I couldn't save from herself. So I ask you, have you checked the locks on your own life lately? Do you know who has keys to your heart, your home, your hard-earned security? Are there Madisons in your family circling like vultures, waiting for weakness? Don't wait for abandonment on a desert highway to recognize the predators among your own. Change your locks, physical, financial, emotional, before someone you trust proves unworthy of that sacred gift. Share your own stories in the comments below. Like this video if it opened your eyes to the warning signs. Subscribe to our channel for more real-life accounts of family betrayal and ultimate justice. And please share this story with anyone who needs to hear that standing up to family predators isn't cruelty, it's survival. Thank you for witnessing my journey from abandonment to justice. May your own families be bound by love rather than greed. May your trust be earned rather than exploited. And may you never need to discover how strong you truly are when someone you love tries to destroy you. Remember, the best inheritance you can leave your children isn't money or property. It's the knowledge that actions have consequences, that love includes boundaries, and that no one, regardless of blood relation, has the right to treat you as less than human in pursuit of your possessions. Stay strong, stay alert, and above all, stay true to the values that matter more than any penthouse or portfolio. Your worth isn't measured in what you own, but in how you treat those who trust you with their vulnerabilities. Madison forgot that lesson. Make sure your children never do. God bless and good night from Dallas, where an old wolf learned that sometimes the pack you choose is stronger than the pack you're born into, and where every changed lock represents not paranoia, but wisdom earned through painful experience.